Okay, here we're going to be putting some feedboard tapes on this 3302 Ryobi. 3302M, 3302H, 3304H, the newer style belts. They are 4 feed belts. There's how they come to us. We only sell original Ryobi belts, which is that number with a -3 at the end, which is the most popular now. So, just going to go through real quick here, and we're basically going to take this whole feed board is going to come out because these belts are what we're going to change. So, we're going to start by, we've already pulled some of the covers off the press. We're going to drop this control panel down, which is done by a screw there and a screw over here. They've already got pulled out, and this will hinge down. We're going to take this little guard off here, which is a couple more screws in there. And this is just kind of to get started. And then we're going to, on the non-operator side, we're going to take this plate off. And we're going to take this guard off. And we're going to take the wheels off. I've already taken one set off. I'm going to take this set off just to get them out of the way. I'm going to take any retainers off that are on there. We're going to really just get everything out of the way because this whole board is going to come right out of there. There's a bushing here we're going to take out. There's a bolt here. This is one of the last things we're going to take out. This is how you lift the back end of the feed board up. We're going to put a zip tie around the chain, between the chain and that hole right down there, so the chain doesn't jump time, because if that jumps time, that's a whole nother issue. And we're going to take this sprocket off. We're back to the operator side. We're going to take this sprocket off, this chain and this sprocket off, because this roller is what these belts mount to. I'm going to pull that roller out just a little bit, about 3 inches, that distance right there. Then we'll be able to slip the old belts off this side, and we'll put the new belts on this side. So that's in a nutshell what we're going to do. So let me see if I can get this set up here. Just get a couple things out of the way here. Got a 3mm Allen wrench. We're going to loosen 2 sides of this. These wheels come right out of there. Take this retainer off. I'm going to take this plate off over here. I pointed out there's 3 screws in here. May have to turn it a little bit because there's a lever here that you got to pull it off from. We're going to take this plate out of here. There's 4 screws in this here. If they've never been out before, they're going to be pretty tight, so you're going to need like some mini vice grips to get them loose. Use vice grips and a screwdriver just to loosen it so I don't strip it out. Also going to pull this retainer off back here. Now we're going to release the tension on these tapes by, there's a little shaft over here with flat spots on it. That's for the tension roller down below. I just flip that. Now the tapes have all kinds of slop in them. And now, I'm just taking these two screws out over here. Get this plate out of here. Got to take this bar out of here so I can get the plate out. So this just has a 4mm Allen in each end of it. Zip those little guys out of there. I'll put the screws back in there just so I know that those screws go in there. This plate will just kind of come out like so. Now the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to take this sensor. Oops. I'm going to get the sensor out of here because that's mounted to the feed board assembly. Again, I'm probably going to need little mini vice grips for that. Move those out of the way. Just loosen it and then I can get my Phillips in there. Before I take the screws all the way out, I'm going to remove, there's a keeper here for the wire. Just a little plastic nylon thing that holds the wire in the right spot. Those don't come out too bad because they're nylon pieces that they're in. So that's just a little piece of nylon they mount to the back side of that. Okay, now I'll take my last screw out of here. Sensor. This is a sensor that counts the sheets and detects a late sheet getting on the feed board. Just get that out of the way. Okay, now I'm going to this is going to be difficult. I'm going to take this push guide piece, remove that. There's a plate in here, so I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to just kind of lift this part up. Pull it out. That's your push guide cam. take this piece out of here. Should be just 3 Phillips screws. There's one up here that's behind the spring. Kind of in the way. I'll remove the spring once I get this plate out of here. Now there's 2 more screws on this end over here. And this, you need to take the tension off this here so that you can get this chain loose enough to get it out. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put a zip tie. There's a hole right here in the sprocket, so you might have to inch it around to get that hole there. I'm going to put a zip tie over that chain so I don't lose my timing. I'm going to take the tension off the chain. So that's real loose now. Now I can get this out of here. That spring hooks in there. Okay, now we can see the push guide mechanism. Okay, so now we're ready to take our 4 points where it mounts out of there. So let me see if I can adjust this. We're going to take this bushing out of here. It's a 4 millimeter. Probably have to loosen it with an L wrench. Then I'll go in with a T wrench and pull it out. And these bolts screw into the feed board side frame. They go through the side frame of the press. So I'm just going to pull these out. And I'm going to lay them right down there so I know that they go right there. Now we're going to go to the other side and do the same thing. Pull this control panel down. Just hinges down once I get the last screw out. Drop the screw. That's going to happen. Now this is the bushing we're pulling out. The operator side. I'm just going to loosen them with this 4. I can pull them out. And those I'm just going to leave set on that bracket. I'm going to pull this bracket out of there. lay my screws right there with my bracket, so I know they go right there. Okay, now we're going to come back here. I'm going to take off this tension wheel. There's no timing here, so this chain doesn't matter. I'm going to take off this tension wheel. I'm going to pull this, knock the pin out of that sprocket, get that sprocket off, because now we're going to knock the shaft over to the non-operator side to be able to pull the belts off. So I need a small drift punch for that. And I like to have a magnet close by for this. Putting the hand wheel in so I can roll this over. You'll see the sprocket move until I can see the pin. There's a hole right there, the pin's in there. So I'm just gonna, just got a little drift punch. It's about a 1/16 drift punch. Let me get that started. And put the magnet down below. Just stick it down there and it'll grab that pin. So we got the pin out. Now we got to come back to the other side. And we're going to remove this plate around this bearing, because in order to knock that pin, knock that roller back this way, this has to be gone. And these are usually pretty tight too. That last one doesn't want to come out, so I'm going to pump it with a hammer. Okay. Now, this is the other end of the roller. I'm going to hit the roller this way. This is going to come out. This bearing will fall out of the side frame. That roller will drop down. Then I can get the feedboard tapes off that end of it. Another thing, while I'm right here, this block actually has to come off because I got to be able to get to that hole. So I'm going to take these 5mm bolts, are really long. Actually, I'm going to leave that one in just a little bit. I'm going to remove this one completely. Now I can rock this whole thing sideways and just lock this top one back down. Like that. Must be thunder out there. Okay, so that's going to be an 8mm. So I've got an 8mm here, and I might have to need a little cheater to put on the end of that for leverage. Okay, I got it loose. That's all I need. Now this one I can probably take completely out. the non-operator side first. Save that bolt. While I'm over here, I'm going to knock this bushing out. This bushing right here that I pulled the bolts out of earlier. This is going to hold the front end non-operator side. You should be able to just take a flathead screwdriver and get right on the edge of that. Start tapping it out. Now you don't want to hit on the bearing. Okay, so as soon as that clears, this side is loose. You can see how that whole side moves. We're going to leave that right in there. It's clear so it can actually come down. The feedboard can be dropped. Now, I'm going to knock the same bushing here, and here you'll be able to see what I'm actually doing. I'm just putting the edge of that blade on the edge of that bushing. Now this roller is going to drop, but it shouldn't drop out of the machine because the tapes are going to kind of hold it. I just heard the roller drop. It's just kind of sitting in there now. Feedboard's probably going to drop in a second here. Okay, that's through the side frame. So now I'm going to get that roller out of there so it doesn't drop and get ruined. So I can just reach underneath here. And we're going to pull it down on the non-operator side. Tools out of the way. Push my guide over there. Push this guide. Over there. The roller comes down through the bottom like so. I can just kind of sneak it out of there. The roller's out now. So now this end of the feedboard is completely loose. Not quite. I guess I got to tuck it with the screwdriver one more time. There we go. Okay, it's just stuck in, there we go, it's just stuck in there a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to take this last 6mm out over here, but first we want to knock the roller over. So get another drip punch. We're just gonna take and knock this roller back. Well, another thing we wanna do is we wanna mark that shaft against that gear. Just gonna put a witness mark on it. So when we put the gear back on the shaft, it goes on properly. You can have it 180 degrees off. The hole may line up and it may not. So we're just gonna put a scratch there, and a scratch there. Now that shaft seems like it's gonna come out really easy. Sometimes they don't come out that easy. Sometimes you have a hard time with it. You want to use a punch that's just slightly smaller than the gear. The inside of the gear here. If you don't, you want to use a small punch, you're liable to ruin the end of the gear. So I'm just going to knock this off real slow. Now the gears already fell off. Now what I want to do is when I knock that shaft all the way over, I want to catch it. I don't want it to drop in here because it can possibly drop and end up bending the tip of it. So I just got it pushed over. Now I'm dropping it down. You can see how it's on a pretty good angle. I can just slip my belts right off the end of it now. I slip all four of them over there. Usually what you can do with the old belts, you can just cut them off. You don't need to pull them off because they're junk anyway. Just take them around there, around the end of the roller. Just cinch them all the way over there. Two, three, four. Okay, there's all four belts. All four belts are released. The roller's out of the way. The only thing that's holding this entire feed board in now is this one last 8mm bolt. What you gotta be careful of on that is when you remove it, this bolt, you gotta be careful that it doesn't drop down and shear these wires off. And also your sensor wire is down in the sensor that I pulled off. You see that right down there. So when you pull that bolt out, this can drop, shear them off, and you got a whole nother set of problems. So everything else is loose. This bushing is out. This bushing is out. This bolt is out. We've got this mechanism all disconnected. The roller's out, the tapes are off. This feed board is ready to come out now. Got one bolt left, and I left that one on purpose because that's the important one that you don't want to drop because of, you don't want the wires to get cut off. So I'm going to bring this back over here. See if we can't get this just right. Okay. Okay, the bolt's coming out. pressure up on it as I pull this last bolt out. Now I should just be able to lift up the back side first, because the front side has to come back a little bit. I'm gonna lift this side up and shift the whole thing backwards. It'll come right out of there. Bam, it's out. So go have a look at it here. Now you got this out, it's a good idea to just clean everything up. Get some blanket wash with a brush. Try to keep it out of these bearings. You see a part missing while I'm in here. There's a half moon gone for the jogger, push jogger. So we'll be putting the new belts. I'm going to get this all cleaned up. We'll put the new belts on right here, setting outside the machine, before we just reverse the process and put it back in the press. I'm going to put these on there, set of new belts. You can buy all that stuff from us right here at RyobiPressParts.com.